Feed-only Performance Max is one of the most underused campaign setups in e-commerce Google Ads right now, and most store owners have no idea they're missing out on a better campaign type. Here's the thing, if you're starting with full asset Performance Max or running standard shopping, you might be leaving profitable ROAS on the table in the early stages of your campaign especially. There's a specific way to set up Performance Max that forces Google to focus almost entirely on the channel that consistently performs best for e-commerce, and you don't give up any of Performance Max's most powerful features in order to do it. Now, I've been running a Google Ads agency called Big Flare for over 12 years now, and in that time, we've generated more than $150 million in e-commerce revenue for our clients through Google Ads. And we've used this exact setup across dozens of accounts. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what this setup is, how to build it from scratch inside Google Ads, why it outperforms standard shopping in several important ways, and one thing you need to watch out for that most people miss. All right, let's start with the setup. All right, guys, so what we're going to be setting up today is a feed-only Performance Max campaign. So to get started, you want to click here to create a new campaign. And this feed-only Performance Max campaign is exactly how you make a Performance Max campaign that just focuses on shopping ads only. So click on the sales objective when you first get into your new campaign setup, and then you want to make sure you've got the correct conversion goal selected, which in this case for an e-commerce store is normally going to be just purchases. Make sure you don't have any other weird goals in here like, I don't know, phone calls or form fills, unless those goals are legitimately valuable to you. And then when you're happy with the conversion goal setup, click on continue. We're going to select a type now of campaign, and it's going to be Performance Max, of course. And then you need to select which product feed you're going to be advertising in here. Now, obviously, I have an agency account, so I've got a few different product feeds in here. For you, you probably only see one thing in here. So select your product feed like that, make sure it's the correct one, and then you can go ahead and name your Performance Max campaign. I normally like to name them something like this, PMax, and then maybe this is going to be an all products campaign, and then actually we're going to say PMax feed only is the campaign type. Okay. Once you've done that, you can click continue and then click start new here if you see this screen coming up. And we are into the campaign setup flows. So a lot of this you're going to be used to, but there are a couple of tweaks we need to make to turn this into a feed-only campaign. So bidding, what do you want to focus on? If you don't have a lot of conversion data in your account, you can just start with conversion value here and don't set a target return on ad spend. If your account already has tons of conversions in there, then you can probably get away with setting a target return on ad spend and then maybe just sending it straight to whatever is your actual target return on ad spend for that account. If you've got hundreds or even thousands of conversions in the account as a whole, then I think you can just go straight to target return on ad spend. If this is a new account or a fresher setup, then no target ROAS and just conversion value there. That customer acquisition bidding, that's a different setting that I could do a whole other video on, but for now we'll skip that one. That's for generally later down the line after this campaign has already got a bunch of data. And now you're going to see some campaign settings that you need to fill out. So make sure your location is correct, make sure you've got the right language, say no to EU political ads. And under more settings, is there anything you need to actually change in here? Nope, there is not. So you don't really need to worry about the more settings section. You can just leave that blank. Then you're going to get this asset generation screen. And now here's the important part. We're not adding any assets. This is feed only. There aren't going to be any assets. So absolutely just skip this section. We're not even going to generate any assets at all. And we're purposely going to stop Google from having any assets. That's the whole point here. So asset group name, I might be splitting out my asset group by product category. So let's just do a made up product category here. Maybe I'm advertising running shoes and maybe I've got a men's shoes category or men's running shoes category. And then you can select which listing group you want to go into your first ad group. You can select all products there, or you can click the pencil icon and use a selection of products. So in this example, I might use a selection of products because I've decided that this asset group is going to be for a specific product category. So I might find a particular custom label that describes that product category and use that for my listing group. For you, just use whichever filtering for your listing group makes most sense for the asset group structure that you're setting up. Brand guidelines, yep, you can fill in your store name here. It's fine to add logos there. You don't actually really need them because the ad placements that actually use these bits are not going to be showing, but it doesn't have to just fill them out anyway. Then for your assets, so this is the important part. Now earlier, we added the product feed, so there is a feed here, and then this is a PMax feed-only campaign, so this is the part that you absolutely have to skip. This is the assets, this is the bit we're not adding. So you want to just make sure that all of this is blank. Do not fill this in, the headlines, do not fill in the long headlines, do not fill in the descriptions, do not fill in the images, do not fill in the videos. Skip all this stuff. Make sure it's just all set to 0. And don't accidentally fill something in, otherwise you'll end up with an assets-based PMax campaign, which defeats the whole purpose of this. And then site links you can skip as well. They're not really going to be showing any site links when we're just focusing on shopping ads. Call to action doesn't matter. We're not going to be showing the call to action button anywhere. This is just for when you're actually using assets. So pretty much you can just skip all this stuff. This is a really easy campaign setup because you don't have to add all the images and headlines and descriptions. And that's actually pretty much it. No, that isn't it for this screen. The next really important step, don't miss this one guys, is come to asset optimization and turn all this stuff off. If you leave this stuff on, Google might just create assets out of thin air. Well, not out of thin air, out of your product feed and out of your website. It will try and figure out some automatic images and videos and headlines that it can make for you. And we don't want any of that. That defeats the purpose of a PMax feed only campaign. So turn this off, turn this off, turn this off, turn this off. And we are good. Now, a couple of targeting options that you can input here. Search themes is good to add. That helps the system understand exactly what keywords you want to be targeting. So let me go ahead and add those. Okay, I filled out my search themes, and what I did there, I just skipped the video ahead a bit, but I went away and did keyword research, figured out what are the 50 best, most relevant, good search volume terms that I want to be pointing Google ads at for my PMax asset group, and I've just added them in there. When you are running PMax feed only, audience signal has some impact, but it's only a small impact. It's nowhere near the size of impact that audience signals have when you are using images and videos in your PMax campaign. So in this case, yeah, it doesn't hurt to add audience signals. It's not going to add a ton of volume or a ton of difference to your campaign, but it might help the campaign be like 1 or 2% better. So we'll go ahead and add our audience signals. All right, guys, there you can see I've added my audience signals. I added some your data audiences, my retargeting audiences. I've added some interests and detailed demographics audiences. I've got some in-market, some affinities there, all stuff that is relevant to this particular product that I'm advertising. So when you've done this bit, you can now scroll down and you can click on the next button to go on to the next screen. You're then going to set your average daily budget. So don't go with Google recommendations. It's normally going to recommend something wacky. Set a budget that is in line with what you actually want to spend per day. Click on next. All right, next up, you'll see your summary screen. Your campaign is ready to publish. Now you just want to check over all these details here. Make sure you got it correct, and definitely check this bit. Assets, no assets. Asset optimization turned off. Check that you've got your product feed attached, and if all of that looks good, then you are ready to go ahead. So there's where you check that your product feed is attached, and yep, it's attached. I'm ready to go. I'm going to click publish, and job's done. We now have our feed only PMax campaign running in the account. Okay, so now you've seen the setup, let me explain what feed only PMax actually is and why it works so well. Normally, when you set up a Performance Max campaign, it runs across all 6 of Google's channels simultaneously. That is shopping, search, display, YouTube, Gmail, and Discover. When you add creative assets like images, videos, headlines, and descriptions, Google distributes your budget across all of those channels. But here's the thing, for e-commerce, shopping ads are by far the highest purchase intent channel. They show your product image, your title, your price, and your store name right there in the search results. And that is what really converts. Feed-only PMax means you attach your product feed but add zero creative assets to your campaign. No images, no videos, no headlines, no descriptions. The result is that Google has nothing to show on search, display, YouTube, Gmail, or Discover. So it defaults to just showing shopping ads. You get the Performance Max campaign framework with all of its advantages while forcing it to behave like a shopping-focused campaign. And that means more of your budget goes directly to the channel that typically drives the most purchases. You're eliminating low-converting display and video impressions from the equation. You're also eliminating search text ads, which often do a lower return on ad spend than shopping. And all of this is especially valuable for e-commerce stores that are starting out and or just want reliable ROAS quickly. So why not just use standard shopping? Now, this is a key question. If you're forcing Performance Max to focus on shopping, why not just run standard shopping campaigns instead? The answer is that Feed-only PMax gives you several features that standard shopping simply does not have. And these features can matter a lot, especially for newer campaigns. Let me walk you through them. The first advantage is new customer acquisition bidding. Performance Max lets you set the campaign to prioritize acquiring new customers over returning customers. You can tell Google to bid higher specifically for first-time buyers. Now think about why that matters. Returning customers are more likely to convert anyway. They already know your brand, they already trust your product, and you're not growing your audience when you are advertising to returning customers. Spending more to win new customers is where your real growth comes from. And standard shopping has no equivalent new customer acquisition setting. So if new customer acquisition is important to you, and it should be, this feature alone is a strong reason to choose Feed-only PMax over standard shopping. The second advantage is search themes. Performance Max lets you add search themes to guide the algorithm towards the keywords and search queries that you want to appear for. This is particularly useful when you're starting a new campaign with no historical data. Search themes help the algorithm learn faster and avoid wasted spend on irrelevant search terms. Think of it like giving Google a compass and a map. The map is the product feed. This is the main thing Google uses to guide its keyword targeting. Both standard shopping and Performance Max have the map. But search themes are like a compass. They help Google find its way along the map a little bit faster, and only PMax gives Google this compass. Standard shopping has no equivalent feature, it's only got the map. So the algorithm can potentially get a bit more lost along the way, especially during the early stages when navigating without that compass. So when you go with PMax feed only, you don't have that problem, and the algo is going to use search themes to find its way faster. The third advantage of PMax feed only, and this is a big one, is better bid strategies for new campaigns. Performance Max gives you access to maximize conversions and maximize conversion value as starter bid strategies. These are ideal because they gather conversion data without the constraint of having to hit a specific target. And once you have enough data, you can layer in target ROAS or target CPA bidding instead. Now compare that to standard shopping. Standard shopping gives you maximize clicks, manual CPC, and target ROAS. Now here's the problem with those. Maximize clicks optimizes for clicks, not purchases. And this is a poor choice for e-commerce because you want people to buy, not just visit. Manual CPC requires you to set bids manually. It's tedious and inefficient for most stores. And target ROAS is available on standard shopping, but you need conversion data first if you want it to work really well. You can't set a meaningful target without data to base it on. So with feed-only PMax, you can start with maximize conversion value, gather data, and then switch to target ROAS when you're ready. That's a much smoother path to profitability. The fourth advantage is future-proofing. Google consistently releases new features and improvements to Performance Max first. Some features eventually make it to standard shopping, but often months or even years later. And some features never come to standard shopping at all. Running feed-only PMax means you automatically get access to those new features as Google rolls them out. Standard shopping campaigns risk falling behind as Performance Max continues to evolve. So by choosing feed-only PMax now, you're setting yourself up to benefit from whatever Google releases next. Before we move on, I want to quickly tell you about something that could really help you out. If you're watching this and you're not sure whether your Google Ads account is set up the right way, I offer a personal video audit where I personally record a 15 to 20 minute in-depth video audit of your Google Ads account. I will go through your campaign structure, your bid strategies, your feed quality, and give you specific recommendations on what to fix and what to scale. It's $250 and you can find it over at bigflare.com, link in the description below. All right, let's get back to the content. Now, I want to talk about something a bit controversial. This is the question of whether Google gives Performance Max budget priority over standard shopping. So here's the history. When Performance Max first launched, Google explicitly gave it budget and inventory priority over standard shopping. Standard shopping campaigns routinely lost spend to PMax when both were running simultaneously. And there were also documented instances showing Google reserved premium inventory for Performance Max specifically. Now, Google has since stated that this is no longer the case. And we have observed that standard shopping can now get reasonable spend alongside Performance Max. However, here's what I'll say. At Big Flare, we have still observed situations where feed-only PMax consistently generates more sales than standard shopping campaigns that were otherwise nearly identical. Now, I want to be upfront. The following is my personal opinion based on observed account data. It's not something Google will confirm, but what I think is happening is that Google is still giving PMax some form of preferential treatment in auctions, even if the explicit priority rules no longer exist. So that's just something worth being aware of when you're deciding between PMax feed only or standard shopping. Now, here's one of the biggest practical advantages of starting out with feed only PMax. You can easily split test adding full creative assets later using Google Ads campaign experiments. So here's how that works. You start with a feed-only PMax campaign, you reach a profitable ROAS, you scale up. Then you run a campaign experiment using the built-in experiment feature in Google to test whether adding images, videos, and headlines improves or hurts your performance. The campaign experiment feature in Google lets you do this cleanly and scientifically. You'll get high-quality data on whether adding assets is good for you or not, and you won't have to start your PMax campaign from scratch to do this. And that's huge. Now compare that to starting with standard shopping. If you later want to test full assets Performance Max, you have to start a brand new campaign from scratch. A whole new campaign means a whole new learning phase, which typically means poor early performance. You'll still be able to split test full assets PMax against shopping only, but you will have to bear through a longer learning phase during which you are likely getting worse results. So by starting with feed-only PMax, you keep your options open. You can always add assets later through an experiment, and you don't have to suffer through a long learning period to do it. And this is just one of those things that with standard shopping is less optimal. Alright, now there's one important caveat that anyone running feed-only PMax needs to be aware of. This is a recent development. In the past year or so, Google has started showing ads on channels other than shopping, even in PMax feed-only campaigns when no creative assets have been added and auto asset generation is turned off. Search ads, YouTube ads, and other placements have been observed spending in otherwise feed-only campaigns. This appears to be Google's algorithm managing to create assets from your product feed or landing page, regardless of the absence of uploaded assets. Now, before you panic, the damage is usually minimal in context. For example, if you are spending $20K on PMax feed only, you might observe maybe $300 being spent on non-shopping channels. So it's usually like 1 to 2% of the overall spend at most. It's not really a reason to avoid feed-only PMax, but it is something to monitor actively. Now, this is more likely to happen in specific scenarios, mainly when you have no target ROAS set, especially on maximize conversion value or maximize conversions with a high daily budget. The algorithm in this scenario has more freedom to explore when it's unconstrained by any ROAS or CPA targets. Here's what typically happens once the campaign matures. Once you pass the learning phase and set a target ROAS, traffic on non-shopping channels usually drops to almost nothing. The ROAS target makes shopping ads the most efficient route to meeting the goal. So what should you do? Well, monitor your placement and channel breakdown regularly, especially in the first 30 to 60 days. You can do this by using the channel performance report inside your PMax campaign in Google Ads. Once you have set a target ROAS and exited the learning phase, this issue largely resolves itself. Okay, now that you know how feed-only PMax works and why it outperforms the alternatives, the natural next question is this: when should you be using Performance Max versus standard shopping across your full account? So I have a video that covers exactly that. Check out the video, it's right up here. It covers the full comparison and helps you make the right call for your specific situation. Watch this video and I promise you'll never scratch your head again over whether to choose Performance Max or standard shopping for advertising your e-commerce store. All right, that's it for this one. Go get your feed-only PMax campaign set up today and start seeing the difference. Good luck with your campaigns. I'll see you on the next one.